Hey everybody, welcome back to Your Free TV. It is Thursday, August 7th, 2025. I'm so glad to be back with you here on UR Free TV. I'll jump in with my disclaimer. This video is for entertainment purposes only. It is protected by the United States Constitution protecting free speech, as well as the Sullivan Act and reporting. It is not intended to bully or harass anyone, never to incite violence, hatred, or lawlessness of any kind. It doesn't give legal, medical, or financial advice, and there are further disclaimers in the description below. So glad to be back with you here again today on Thursday. The news is just piling up. It's so intense that we're just trying to catch up with it. And the FBI firings today are huge. The meetings with Putin and Trump soon for the peace deal in Ukraine, that's massive. We're going to jump into all of it with multiple other things here in a moment. I just want to stop and say thank you to everybody supporting the channel. You're making it happen. And I'm just so appreciative of everybody donating monthly, everybody donating to keep the channel going. Thank you. Okay. So, and I'll plug at the end of the channel. We've got some great deals here for a fundraiser with c60evo.com. They're amazing. My sponsor. Use the code YAFTV, c60evo.com/YAFTV to experience this incredible mitochondrial cleaner and energy booster. It transforms your ability to combat inflammation, to clear out your mitochondria. It's an amazing product, and I'll get more into it towards the end of the channel, at the end of the video. All right, so there's just so much going on. I think I'm going to jump in with the FBI stuff because it's been so huge today. The firings of the deep staters, the SESers, senior executive service FBIers that have been fired today, and it's just so curious that they have been going on so long under Kash Patel's leadership at the FBI. And some of these things are shocking considering who these people are, and actually were kind of defended by Kash Patel in the beginning. So let's jump in. We're going to get into the Putin stuff. Everything's interrelated here with Epstein, Ukraine, Putin, England, the royals. As I've been saying for the last couple months here, everything with Epstein, everybody has it. Okay, it's not just the U.S. government that has the Epstein files or whatever you want to call it. There were so many governments wired in to everything that Epstein was doing, as far as recording everything and capturing it all. And some interesting revelations to do with Putin, to do with Prince Andrew, we'll get into. And as Trump is said to be meeting with Putin soon, for hopefully the end of the Ukraine war. Russia won, by the way, toy. They beat Ukraine, they beat the USA. They have won the war, and that's what happens. You win wars, and then you won. And so we're going to get into that in a moment, but I want to start with the FBI. So the FBI, we have mass really crucial firings that happened today, actually by Donald Trump through Kash Patel, sort of forced this to happen. And this has to do with Brian Driscoll, who was the former acting director before Kash Patel got in. And it has been found out that he was super involved in everything J6, everything to do with the FBI roundup of the J6ers, everything to produce what was the domestic terrorism declaration of J6ers to be considered domestic terrorists. Therefore, they lose their civil protections, their civil rights, in the sense that they don't get due process in the amount of time they're supposed to get an immediate trial. All of this, as we know, that never happened. The J6ers were sitting for years waiting for trials, having these things brought against them. It's going to get in, it goes into Boasberg, the judge who's been connected with the Inn of Courts, controlled by the King's Privy Council, controlled by the Pilgrim Society. He has been, of course, stopping now all the deportation stuff, everything that Judge Boasberg has been involved with. Well, the guy who set up the Mar-a-Lago raid, and of course the Mar-a-Lago raid happened tomorrow, the 8th of August in 2022. So a 3-year anniversary tomorrow. And now we're just getting the firing of the guy, super connected here with Brian Driscoll, who was being fired by Kash Patel uh, today by under President Trump's orders, to basically that Brian Driscoll had been involved in stopping the release of all of the information from the FBI that was requested by the DOJ under Trump, to give all the information on all the agents that were involved, especially in the middle to senior levels in the SAC offices across the country, for rounding up J6ers that were roped in to create this domestic terrorism. White supremacist terrorism is the most awful thing, and create this whole scenario against Trump. Okay, all the lawfare, all of it. Okay, the insurrection, blah, 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 which is being undone. There's so many great things going on. So let's just keep that in mind. But now just getting rid of Brian Driscoll, who was the person who was resisting, and he was he was the interim director of the FBI while they were getting Kash Patel confirmed. Okay, who was busy, busy, busy stopping the DOJ from being able to achieve the documents, get the documents, FOIA, Judicial Watch, everybody trying to get the documents on who are these FBI officers, heads of, SACs, the chief officers in the areas across the country running this operation. And he withheld that information from the DOJ. And finally, he has been fired, Brian Driscoll. And there's so many others besides, there's three more that are very, very important. But Driscoll became a hero, kind of like, the guy in Southern District of New York who was preventing them getting the Epstein files, and had tampered with all of that and everything that went down with his firing, hailed as a hero, where they actually had these coins that you could purchase, that had to do, it was a challenge coin in the FBI, called, they used to have this little thing that they would say to each other, what would Driz do? And this is about the occupation of the FBI by the deep state, the SES, Senior Executive Service, all run out of MI6. And on this challenge coin that you could get through the FBI for members, it was Driscoll sitting at the Resolute desk in the Oval Office is what's featured on this coin. That's how important this guy was to them, to covering up the whole JSIC commission, everything that went down. And so he's just been fired, okay? And why is he still even around? Why is he still even around? And that's the big question. Okay, he withheld the J6 agents list from the DOJ, only being fired today under Kash Patel. And we got to wonder, but we might wonder some things here. So, couple other people. Steve Jensen, okay, he was the director of the Washington, D.C. field office, who had everything to do with basically everything that went down with J6. Okay, Steve Jensen, who Kash Patel is even on video saying he retained him because he was resisting what they were doing with J6, all of this, and it was complete baloney. And we have to wonder, what's Kash Patel doing, because, of course, government gangsters and, whatever, if they wanted to change the FBI, they would have just tipped it upside down, gotten rid of everybody, middle management and above, into senior executive service, gotten rid of everybody, okay, and then start with the people who have maybe 10 years in, haven't reached the higher heights, the people who you can trust, okay, in the FBI. Because Kash Patel has no experience, um, and hasn't, there's so much going on. It's just flood the zone. They call it bubble wrapping, according to people like Kyle Seraphin, the FBI whistleblower, where they just bubble wrap the new director that comes in, and they just flood him with, everything to do with so many other investigations doing with the deportations, ICE, all of the busting of so much great stuff. But in the deep state, they want to dissuade you away from the things that really matter, which is, of course, all of the investigations that are coming out through ODNI, through through Gabbard, through Tulsi Gabbard, and everything to do with what's launching here with of course, the grand jury impaneled there in what looks like southern Florida. And we're kind of hearing from John Solomon and others that we're looking at whoever, the U.S. attorney out of Miami is going to be the one running this grand jury as we go forward into Crossfire Hurricane. And so Steve Jensen, director of the Washington field office, he had everything to do with, again, under Brian, in connection with Brian Driscoll, um, to do with the J6 roundup and the Trump investigations. And we get into things like this other fellow, Chris Mayer. Chris Mayer is really important here because he was also engaged in this operation in D.C. Underneath Steve Jensen and Brian Driscoll to do with what was called CS-15, the Criminal Squad 15, the unit out of D.C., where he had everything to do with planning, getting all of the information together for what was the Mar-a-Lago raid. And that's why I mentioned it earlier as we're on this 3-year 3-year anniversary of the Mar-a-Lago raid. And that we're looking at Chris Mayer, who was FBI special agent who prepared the Mar-a-Lago raid search warrant for the FBI to go in when they were granted lethal force to go into Mar-a-Lago to raid, and they were looking for, as we know, the Crossfire Hurricane documents that Trump, as president, had every right to have. And they were looking for them, didn't find them, all of it, the raid through the whole house, everything. But Chris Mayer is the one who prepared the way for that. And of course, that led to Jack Smith. And Jack Smith's now getting this Hatch Act investigation. And that's nothing. Hatch Act, yeah, it's important because he never was certified by Congress to become a special counsel to do the whole situation of investigating Trump. Literally all of Trump's trials and investigations, all the lawfare stem out of this Russiagate Crossfire Hurricane. It all leads up through the 2020 Steele. Everything leads up. And so it's just a massive waterfall, just, tsunami landslide of all of this so interconnected that it all leads to these people and they're being fired. So Chris Mayer, who prepared the Mar-a-Lago search warrant information through the FBI as a special agent, he ended up transferring, okay, out of that DC unit into the CS-15 unit once it was taken apart. After, of course, they never, they didn't have to do the J6 was over. And so he transfers into, because he also has a pilot's license. He was a ex-Air Force, I believe, pilot. And he ends up flying the plane of Kash Patel. He's flying the Gulfstream 550, okay, that is, Kash Patel's private plane that he uses to go everywhere. He's been in New Zealand lately. We're looking at Five Eyes. Is he just getting information? Is he building out FBI in New Zealand? What's he doing here with the Five Eyes? New Zealand, Australia, Canada, MI6, UK, and the US. The only country that's not a directorate of the crown. But basically, this guy Chris Mayer has been the pilot of Kash Patel's plane, and he was fired today as well. And we had Brian Driscoll even threatening Kash Patel, saying, "Hey, you sure you want to fire that pilot who has been, listening to all your conversations for the last 6 months?" on board the plane as you fly place to place on your private plane. And so, what the heck? What the heck's going on with Kash Patel, and what's going on with having these people around? And him being fired is fantastic, but basically, he took the transfer out of Manassas, to go fly Kash Patel's private uh, director of the FBI plane. Okay, and we can guarantee that's collecting intel, and that's what he was doing. And so it's really it's pretty intense what's going on here, because Driscoll, after he was pushed out, when Patel got confirmed, Driscoll just got transferred to the critical intelligence response unit. Okay, and just been continuing with the deep state machinations. And we get another person, who was also fired, Walter Giardina, who was a special agent involved with arresting Peter Navarro, straight up in there with the Fulton County FBI investigation to try to prove fraud against Trump, who was going against, who said to, the Georgia governor, hey, look, you guys, like, you've stolen tons and tons of votes. What about just like, only lost Georgia by like 12,000 votes. Like, I know that you guys can fix this. And everything with Fannie Willis and, what's gone on since there. Harrison Floyd, the other Floyd, Harrison Floyd being arrested at that time as well. And so this is what we're looking at. These deep state FBIers are now fired. And it brings into question hugely the competency of Kash Patel. And of course, you know, Dan Bongino is just like a captured captured man. He's like, I hate my job. I hate this thing. Why did I do this? I just want to go back to my podcast and, survive cancer and just, be happy. This is a shit show. And they never should have taken the position. I mean, he's not qualified, but very interesting to see this all play out as, Stephen Jensen, who was the DC SAC, the head of the DC operations. He's the one, Stephen Jensen, fired, okay, who was the one who got all of the J6ers designated as domestic terrorists. And this is huge, okay? They lost their rights to their civil rights to due process over this because of ridiculous Homeland Security. That is, by the way, as people have been wondering, hey, what's going on with, that Israel is involved in denying disaster aid to people, to states and counties, if or any organization or building or whatever having to do with anyone who doesn't support Israel. Okay, I mean, it's crazy town, and people are like, "Is this still going on?" No, it's over. It was squashed. But there's a whole thing called, I think it's called HSAC, and it is the Homeland Security Advisory Council with like 50 members, or maybe like 30, 34 members. Mark Levin being one of them. All of these globalists, they're coming out of, the Council on Foreign Relations. All of these globalists that are sitting on this Homeland Security Advisory Council to do with our domestic policy of Homeland Security created after 9/11, which happened with the Saudis and the Israelis, bringing in this Middle East Abrahamic war to the USA. And now the only DEI that exists in the USA is, of course, to protect Israelis or Jewish people. All right, now thank goodness getting rid of the DEI, but now we still have this new thing that is like the only DEI now is just Jewish people are a protected class in the USA, and there's all these people on this Homeland Security Advisory Council that tried to push this through, where you won't get disaster relief unless you pledge your allegiance to Israel, is insane and crazy. And that got shot down. It got taken out once they knew what was going on. And of course, Mark Levin in there as a big old, one of the key people on this advisory council. like, let's just stop hiring Fox News people. Okay, I don't know what's going on with you and the Murdochs. I know that, Murdoch Sr. is almost dead. He's whatever. They keep trying to put off this trial that's going on with Trump suing Fox, Murdoch for, lots and lots of money through the Wall Street Journal. But it's like, you know, these Fox News people in the Trump government is just driving me nuts. Okay, and yeah. So as we look at this going on with the FBI firings, it's so important. All these people that were key in, okay, the Mar-a-Lago raid, key in the designation of J6ers as domestic terrorists and white supremacists, of course, and Christian nationalists, etc. We're all super deep in still in the hierarchy of the FBI. And so I know I'm at 20 minutes, but it's very important to understand how intense this is when you look at that there's a challenge coin that has Brian Driscoll's face on one side and his backside sitting at the Resolute desk as the president. Okay, that's their deal, as they think of themselves as the controllers of this country out of the senior executive service created by, the King's Privy Council, created by the Pilgrim Society, starting, of course, with Jimmy Carter, 1979, all of it. And so we're going to we need we need somebody who can really be a FBI director that can handle this. And Kash Patel is kind of failing. We love everything else he's doing, but as far as a lot of arrests that matter. But we know the FBI can arrest anybody, and they can create a raid on a former president. They can arrest every J6er, so why aren't there arrests? Okay, we want the arrests. We want the arrests, not just the subpoenas from Comer out of Oversight Committee. We want the arrests, okay, of these people who broke the law and created these designations, even for what happened to the J6ers. It should be happening immediately. And so, okay, I'm going to move over here from that, even though it's all interconnected, strangely. But, we have uh, Putin and Trump supposedly to meet in the next week or so. Steve Witkoff has been meeting with, had like 4 meetings with Sergei Lavrov and Putin over the last month. They're meeting, they're trying to come to a peace plan. We have in Kiev huge demonstrations about the press ganging, the drafts, the grabbing of the people off the street. They want something like at least 70% of Ukrainians want the end of the war. They want this peace plan to go through. And as we're getting to this point with 4 meetings and Witkoff, and it's just interesting. I mean, I have to say, since Witkoff has been the chief negotiator here, just as an appointee of Trump, like unelected official, not a lot of great things have happened. I mean, that's the reality. Not a lot of great things have happened. Yeah, you've gotten releases of some hostages, blah blah blah. There's not been peace. Okay, and look at what happened the last time there was going to be peace between Ukraine and Russia, when Russia was saying, "Look, we're winning. We have no reason to come to the table except that you're going to stop punishing Russia." And what they do? You had Mossad, Israel, with Ukraine pull off the spider web operation. Okay, and then soon after that, of course, the Iranian offshoot, the same exact thing, where they go in and they assassinate everybody and blow up everything with drones. And so, as we're waiting to see what's going to happen here with Trump and Putin, will they, will they pull off some other, attack event, Mossad? This is all of the stuff of these world war events have Mossad involved. Okay, and it's definitely MI6. It's definitely the royals and everybody out of Europe. And it's like, Trump, why are we selling them our weapons? Why are we selling them our weapons? Like, they seem to be our biggest enemies. However, okay, so as this is going forward with possible peace meet up with Trump and Putin, which is massive and huge, um, will they pull off some other new event, okay, to sabotage it? And that's what we're looking at, waiting to see what's coming here, because it is a huge deal. And one thing that's interesting here with Putin, as I've been saying about, hey, this the Epstein stuff is global. Everybody has the information. One interesting that's coming out is that Putin has uh, tons of the Epstein stuff, and part of it has to do, of course, with Prince Andrew and his pedophilia and his, all of his rapes and whatever for entertainment purposes only, to do with his Epstein connections, and him and Ehud Barak, and everybody hanging out at the Epstein Mansion in New York City, as well as the island. Well, Putin, it said through Andrew Lowney, who is one of these royal biographers out of the UK, he has a book out called Entitled. And one thing that's going on in there is he's talking about a guy named John Mark Dougan. John Mark Dougan, who in 2017 fled to Moscow. Okay, 2017 fled to Moscow. He was a sheriff's deputy in Florida, and he had access, what he's claiming, to these tapes and this intel about Prince Andrew to do with Epstein, and basically stole it, whatever, took possession of it, fled to Moscow because the FBI was after him, and the FBI seized his computers in 2016. He flees to Moscow, becomes a Russian citizen, says that he's handed over all these tapes to, or whatever, videos, etc., information to do with Prince Andrew specifically, about the Epstein affairs. And we can imagine it's much larger than Prince Andrew. Okay, we're all sick of hearing about Prince Andrew. Virginia Giuffre, where is she? Is she dead? What's going on? But it's saying a lot more than that. It's saying that, Russia has a lot of the Epstein information. Okay, and they're playing that card, I would assume, in this peace talk. Okay, Russia has won the war. All right. They won the war, and they get the spoils. I mean, that's how it is with war. And the Ukrainians want it to end. And it's all just controlled by Trotskyite bankster elites. The same people who have been waging this war since 100 plus years ago, way back to the Bolsheviks, getting back to the same people who became then the same oligarchs, became the same families. I think I'll be on tomorrow. It might be Monday, with Leo Zagami. We're going to talk about, the connections of the Epstein and the Maxwell families, way back to these Trotskyites, way back to the southern Russia, Ukraine, a connection here that seems to just be this massive control point of the global bankster elite, and so important to them. It's just like, it's so important to them. They can't give it up. It's so important. It's where they do their most dastardly deeds. And Putin has won. He's won the war, and he has a lot of leverage here that reaches into these Epstein files. And Trump again last night, today, last night he did again. Oh, it's all a hoax, this Epstein stuff. He just can't shut up about it because he keeps protecting this process that he is trying to get accomplished here, where, one, the economy, two, USA has been leveraged and like held captive by Israel Mossad for decades and decades. Okay, this has nothing to do with Trump's personal life, and yes, he did mix in the circles of Jeffrey Epstein, 100%. All the videos are out there, the pictures of him and Melania with Ghislaine Maxwell and all of them, and that's a sad problem, but that's not something that we haven't known for 10 years. Okay, I mean, I've watching Epstein since 2008. Once I first started reading the books and finding out, this is not new, but it was Donald J. Trump who literally was one of the first people to turn in Epstein, and to go Fed's witness, to go completely cooperation with the federal government to prosecute Epstein. So yes, Donald Trump had a lively, okay, I would call it midlife crisis or whatever you want to call it, where he was hanging out in those circles. And you can see how people's lives take turns, okay, where he goes from the mogul of all of the stuff to do with all of his real estate magnate, you know, career, and then goes into Hollywood, and he goes into doing the shows, and he goes into all of it. And then whatever, he wakes up and sees, you know, everything that goes down and decides to get serious. And that's what we're dealing with because Trump was super involved with Ron Cohn and Jewish mafia, like Italian mafia, all of the stuff of New York politics. So deep in there is why he knows what he's doing, what he's dealing with. And so anyway, he came out again yesterday trying to say, oh, the Epstein stuff is just an aside. But we've got Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, all of the AGs, everybody coming in to have to testify, right? As Maxwell transferred to a little club fed, and this is an ongoing thing. It's all happening behind the scenes. So don't like gang up, that it's Trump is the problem. He's not the problem. Okay, the problem is everybody has the information, and we're fighting a world war that is quiet but ongoing, and it's all being done in domestic ways, whether it is the weather war floods we just saw in India in the last few days. They had a massive flood in northern India that was a cloud burst, a weather warfare in northern India causing a massive, massive river flood. It's an ongoing way that this world war is happening, but it's happening. And so as we look at this, Kiev super protests, not just against where the dissolving of the corporate, the state corruption, the state is, they had a whole huge law to say that that we're fighting corruption here, the corruption bureau in Ukraine, and they dissolved that under Zelensky. um, there was that, but now they're fighting massively to stop their press ganging of Ukrainians to try to get them as fodder into the war, and they have nobody left. Okay, the only thing that could happen in Ukraine is foreign troops brought in. That's it. So as we go on from there and we look at other things that are happening, like in Armenia, we have that ongoing situation where they're demolishing the Azerbaijanis that are totally backed by Israel with drones and weapons. They're annihilating the Christians, okay, on the border there. And remember that it was Israel, it was Mossad that killed Iran's president over Azerbaijani airspace in a similar cloud burst, a total out of nowhere, weather event, where supposedly the helicopter went down, right? And tomorrow at the White House, very interestingly, we're having a sort of peace conference meetup at the White House to do with this war that's destroying Christian ancient community there in Armenia. And President Trump is hoping to end this conflict. And let's pray that it happens, because what we're seeing as the new DEI is just, Jews are a protected class across the world. The destruction of ancient Christianity and Christians and their artifacts and the churches and everything is ongoing with zero privileges, zero protection, zero saying, hey, I mean, Trump has done it. There are things out there, the protection of, Christian, whatever, but we're not seeing it in the real world. We're not seeing the translation of that. And so we're going to keep watching what happens tomorrow at the White House. I think this is an exciting meetup, and also very important. And so I want to mention a couple other things. Of course, we had Trump at the White House today, which was National Purple Heart Day. He was very aggro early on when he did a presentation that had to do with new charts and things to talk about the economy, how things were going really great, etc. but he was quite angry, and I think it had to do with the FBI stuff and so much more that he's finding out about. But it was National Purple Heart Day, and he had a great meetup at the White House, honoring people with Purple Hearts and people who had served the country and been injured in war. And it was in 1782 that George Washington created the Purple Heart. Okay, 1782, George Washington. And so there was great announcements there, like the VA medical centers, rapid response to claims is massively doing great, just literally cutting through all the Biden's cuts that Trump had already tried to fix, and Biden shut it down. And veterans are now getting doctor's choice again. They are getting what was Trump's originally the VA Accountability Act. The people that Biden rehired, okay, that Trump had fired, that were just basically sadistic a-holes, stopping veterans getting treatment. They've been fired again, and multiple more people fired who aren't carrying out their duty to get veterans the health care they need. And also the VA Home Loan Reform Act. That's very important as well to prevent foreclosures on veterans' homes that are late in payments, to basically keep them in their homes and find a way to make that work. That's happening. And also, they've built at least one facility to house 6,000, that's a lot of people, homeless vets. So let's hope there'll be more of those, and let's hope it's 6,000, that's a lot of people in one facility. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I'll look deeper into it for sure. And so, as we keep going on with this, Epstein is connected to it all, and connected, of course, to what eventually is going to get to Barack Obama being subpoenaed. We know with Bill Clinton coming in that, if he perjures himself, he has presidential immunity, but if he lies, he loses that immunity. And he can't declare the fifth, all of it. So that's very interesting. But as Barack Obama will be brought in at some point, it's very interesting to look at the sale of the former home that he used to rent in the summers, the summer White House under the Barack Obama regime, in Martha's Vineyard, outside Chilmark. And there is a large African American Black elite community there in Martha's Vineyard, that island off the coast of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And this Chilmark property, it was largely known as um, the most elite gentleman's property, they would have called it back in the day. And what's interesting about this place, Blue Heron Farm, just purchased for $37 million by none other than Les Wexner. Okay, Les Wexner, Epstein, paid for Epstein's mansion. Okay, I think he sold it to him for $1. The Epstein Mansion in Manhattan. I think he had a lot to do also with Zorro Ranch and getting that with Bill Henderson, the former governor. The ranch, the Zorro Ranch, with the cloning and all of the DNA experiments there in New Mexico. Well, Wexner, his trust, because Wexner's like Soros now. He's like, is he even alive? I don't know. It's like old. Um, his trust has bought this Blue Heron Farm where Obama used to spend his summers. And there was all kinds of, a lot that went down back in the day. And it's been years and years now, and I haven't had time to get back into that. Sorry about the weird lighting. Let me see if I can change it. Um, that that Blue Heron Farm, it was always kind of like lots of interesting research there into, is this connected with pedo stuff, etc. Um, there was a woman who was running that farm, Blue Heron Farm. It's not a farm, okay? It's like a massive, is it 30 acres, 60 acres? It's huge for Martha's Vineyard, which is an island, okay? But this gentleman's property, Blue Heron Farm, it goes way back to the original English occupation of Martha's Vineyard, to do with the Wampanoag Indians. And there's actually an artifact, like a historical wall that they built, a big, huge stone wall around this property. I think it's called the Middle Line. And this middle line with its like end pieces of huge boulders, it was meant to basically say to the Wampanoags, don't cross this line. This is our English elite settlement here. And it's different than Nantucket, the huge whaling island that's, 30 miles away, further out to sea. Martha's Vineyard being closer to the mainland there of Cape Cod in Massachusetts, that this place was a place for elites to meet there in the middle, whereas Nantucket was the whaling industry and just way more, Rough Riders. It was your hardcore whaling fishermen and all of it. You get into Nathaniel Hawthorne, Moby Dick and all of that and everything with Melville. Excuse me, not Hawthorne, but Melville. But yeah, Martha's Vineyard was always this interim place where elites were. And this Blue Heron Farm is hugely historical in this, where Obama spent his summers, and has become, in Martha's Vineyard, a huge sort of black conclave of elitists there. And and it's interesting that it has that designation of that middle line wall to do with the Wampanoags. It's very historical, and has, it's Indian occupied land. If you want to go that direction, but uh, it also has, there's a lot of connections here with the woman who used to run the farm, the connections with Ghislaine Maxwell to do with Terra Mar and this ocean preservation. There's so much that goes way into it, into like, southern Florida and in the Caribbean and Bimini and everything to do with Atlantis. I mean, it gets into Ernest Hemingway. I know I'm kind of talking crazy, like off the hook here, but these people are all obsessed with ancient cultures, and we actually just had a huge revelation coming out of Turkey with another ancient underwater city found to do with Noah's Ark, area near Mount Ararat. But this situation with Martha's Vineyard, this massive property being sold to Les Wexner's Trust after it was Barack Obama's summer getaway, and he still has his $8 million mansion there where the chef died in the 3 feet of water, right? He still has that going on, but Les Wexner bought this estate that is super connected to Epstein, super connected to Maxwell, connected to the Obamas, and Les Wexner, who funded Epstein. He's of course the one who started Victoria's Secret and the L brands and all the models, everything to do with Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, everything to do with their modeling agency, all the trafficking of the women through New York City. And Wexner, of course, is also super connected out of Ohio. Sorry, all this crazy light stuff. Super connected with out of Ohio to do with his funding of all the Jewish schools to do with recruiting um, high up intelligence agents and Mossad agents out of Jewish schools, colleges, that he would fund all the organizations, Les Wexner, to recruit everybody, whether it's, high up in B'nai B'rith in Chabad, and hugely into get them into Mossad positions. And you can look at this the same way you look at the CCP with China, right? Any entrepreneur, anybody who's super smart and creating something great, they get you and they grab you and they stuff you into this intelligence network that you can't escape from, and then they of course start gathering their evidence on you, and they don't, they especially go after their own for control. And that's what's crazy, right? That's the most disgusting thing. There's no boundaries there, right? It's not just like, you're one of us, we'll protect you. No, you're one of us, we'll control you the most. And so Les Wexner, the funder of Epstein, the creator of Epstein, hugely with his money, and the huge creator of agents for Mossad out of U.S. Colleges, ends up buying Blue Heron Farm in Martha's Vineyard, just I think it was, I don't know, about a month ago. And and that's just kind of freaky. $37 million for this property, right? And you know, you see a UNESCO, you see all these heritage sites. Oh, not for Chilmark, Martha's Vineyard, this huge historical site where it was this big agreement, supposedly between the English settlers and the Wampanoags to have a sort of boundary and peace place. No, 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 no. This is now Les Wexner's trust owned, and so anything that went down there, all evidence, any whatever's, um, uh, long scrubbed, but an interesting story nonetheless. Okay, so I might jump on from there. We have so much stuff going on here. In Sacramento, they have a huge bill, AB 495, that has already cleared the state's House and going to state Senate in California. And on August 19th, coming up here in less than 2 weeks, they're going to be voting on this bill, AB 495. And this would allow any adult to take guardianship of your child, basically based on all of the trans crap, all of the whatevers. That basically any adult that is a teacher, guidance counselor, a relative or a former relative, meaning an ex spouse, etc., that they will sign over custody of your child to a party, excuse me, that isn't the parent. Okay, this is happening still, okay, in California. And there's going to be a big protest there on the 19th of August in Sacramento, in the capital of California. So people out there, it's worth a trip, but it's also worth, just a hammering of your officials there in California, even though I know they're all on board. You need to take back California. We're at this point where our government is so run by criminals that it's just like, how do we take it back? That we have criminals, out of Texas that fled to Democrats fleeing to Illinois. In my last video, I said this was Soros-funded flight, the $100,000 flight to Illinois for the Texas Democrats who fled to escape having to vote on the redistricting because they knew they would lose because it's a dominated Republican House. And people said, "Oh no, that's Beto O'Rourke, his super PAC." It, yeah, I know, but when you go and you look at Beto O'Rourke's super PAC, that is funded by Alexander Soros. They're like the huge funder of that. And I think there was a BOMB threat at the hotel in Illinois where those Dems are staying today, and they had to flee. I don't know what's going on there. I'm sure that's just an inside job so they could escape. What is both A.G. Paxton calling for their immediate vacation of the seats, and Cornyn has roped in the FBI to go after the Dems hiding in Illinois. Okay, and Trump has even come out in the last day and said we're going to have a mid-decade census. We're going to be doing the census again because it's all there's so much gerrymandering through the Dem states that you have to do it because it's all fake what they have as their lines, and you look almost through the entirety of New England, and it's all massively let's just say Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Vermont, New Hampshire, Hawaii, New Mexico, Connecticut, Delaware. They all have zero Republican congressional seats. Okay. And that's because of massive gerrymandering in all of those states. And those are the states screaming the loudest on CNN and MSDNC and all of it to say that, those crazy authoritarian um, Republicans are trying to attack our electoral process when it's been the absolute opposite for all this time. I know I'm preaching this to the choir, but it's very important to understand that we're dealing with the break in quorum, the total official breaking of the law, to avoid having to vote in your state that is dominated by Republicans to do a law that they have every right to do. It's the same exact as the attacks on, hey, let's just say it's like Thune refusing to go to recess, right? It's pretty much the same, you know, our whole Senate refusing to go to recess, so Trump can get his appointees in recession appointments. But anywho, we're going to keep on that. If you feel like getting involved in the Texas thing, screaming at the governor, we had, you know, Governor Abbott, very strong words. They can arrest those people, but not doing anything about it. They could be sending the Texas Rangers out to go and collect these guys. That's totally in their purview. But if you want to call Governor Abbott, you can do so at 512-463-2000. 512-463-2000. You can call the lieutenant governor, who always speaks such a great game, but doesn't really get anything done. 512-463-0001 for the lieutenant governor. 512-463-0001. And the big dirtbag here in the picture is the Speaker of the House in Texas. That is 512-463-1000. Putting all Democrats on top of the committees, just totally trying to sabotage the Republican dominance of the Congress of Texas. 512-463-1000 for the Speaker of the House in Texas. Okay, and so we're looking at some massive stuff going on because people like John Solomon, who's been, you know, reporting as things are coming out with the setting up of what will be the paneling of the grand jury, what's going on with Crossfire Hurricane. It's so interconnected with everything I've talked about on this video so far. Everything to do with the FBI firings, everything to do with Comer getting everybody into to testify. Well, John Solomon is saying that he expects that soon, it's in August, that soon within this month, we're going to hear something called a truth commission being set up to do with all of these major issues, to do with the attempted coup, and basically it was a coup, the destruction of the 2006 presidency of Trump, how they controlled him for years and prevented him doing what should have been his purview to be able to enact his agenda. And then the 2020 steal, and right up into the 2024 machinations, okay, the Hunter Biden laptop, the rest of it. And the crimes committed there, like even people like Sam Faddis, the CIA, you know, who's being harassed by the same deep state lawfare. Sam Faddis, former CIA agent, you know, saying he had the Hunter Biden laptop for a long time, saw everything on there, and it clearly, you know, yes to all the pornography, yes to all of the evil, okay, of Hunter Biden. It also has everything to do with at least the $31 million paid to the Biden family, the Biden crime family, by high up CCP intelligence agents, okay, to do with energy companies, multiple companies, but literally these were CCP intelligence paying, okay, the Biden regime, Biden crime family, specifically the Bidens, at least $31 million. It's all there on the laptop. And so what I'm saying here is that all these things are building and layering on top of each other. And I know people are like, the arrest, but there is this massive thing coming here. And what Solomon is saying, justthenews.com, he's saying that this is going to be basically a sort of church committee 2.0, where they kind of blew out everything that was happening with the CIA and everything to do with FBI and MK Ultra, you know, connected with, not that it ever got to, you know, a lot of things it needed to get to, like JFK's murder, etc. But it basically, he's saying that there's massive amounts of whistleblowers coming to the ODNI, huge amounts of people coming to Tulsi Gabbard to blow the whistle on Crossfire Hurricane and everything since. And so there's just dozens showing up wanting to be part of this, and that there could be a truth commission. And I love this, right? We need one for, of course, the bio war that was assaulted on the world as well. And basically, it'll be really interesting to see what happens here. This is very exciting. And as I said before, the FBI can seem to arrest tons of people when the government's controlled by the Democrats, the globalist cabal, who are just the 21st century communists. Okay, let's just understand that. The Trotskyite communists that took over Russia, the Bolsheviks paid by the Rothschilds, all of that, it's the same people, okay? And that was communism to create what happened in the 20th century, to destroy, try to attempt to destroy America, but to create their new world order then. 21st century, it's globalism. And the World Economic Forum is now coming out with a new global plastics treaty. They're going to make it so we can't use plastic bags or, it's all because they care about your health and the microplastics, right? But that doesn't mean anything to do with all the missiles, all the solar farms, all of the everything else, the microchips, all of the smart phones and systems that are completely filled with plastic. They're not worried about that. They just want us to carry like earthen jars around, you know, to carry our, our water and our food in. We can't have plastic bags, but they can have all the plastic they want for their domination, world control, and AI domination. They have now Chat GPT-5 just came out saying their PhD level AI buddy, your OS system, your personal assistant that can tell you everything you need to know. They're smarter than you, but I think they're still only as smart as Grok, is what's kind of being reviewed there. But anyway, as we're watching the mosques go up across the country, huge amounts in Florida, another 6-acre mosque being welcomed and massively brought in, Mashallah Temple Terrace, Florida, the Florida Muslim capital. 10 massive Islamic centers being built in all these highly blue state areas, which is so interesting as well because these are the highly Jewish populated areas. But Jews are now a protected class, whereas DEI is gotten rid of for everybody else. So I'm going to leave it there at 57 minutes. Kind of squirrely today, but I will be back tomorrow. I think I'm going to have a great interview for you. I'm really looking forward to it. And so if you enjoyed the video, and I appreciate it so much, if you could support the channel below, become a monthly supporter, that would be fantastic. I can keep doing more, keep getting it out, and keep getting deeper into the details that, you crave, because with only so much money and time, I can only, do what I can do. So your support is paramount, and I so appreciate it. And I want to remind everybody that my sponsor is c60evo.com/YAFTV. I have a code here that is 10% off, which is just use the code YAFTV. You'll get 10% off. Anybody who donates to the channel gets 15% off with a different link and code emailed to you, which is fantastic. And this is the incredible miracle molecule that just gets right into your neurons, into your body. Everything, any supplement that is cleaning out your mitochondria is key. It's what you want to have, especially if it also fights inflammation, and people buying it in the caseload for the big C, fighting that. And just because your mitochondrial health, your cellular health, is what protects you from all those chronic diseases and the ones that they've been putting in with the jabs, etc. And we're having great inroads with wins against the jabs, which is awesome. And I give away 2 bottles of C60 Evo capsules, the organic olive oil capsules that are the most potent that they have there at Evo. The olive oil capsules are extremely potent. And I also have a special deal in the description below, because this is separate from C60 Evo website, anything like that. This is just a fundraiser for You Are Free TV, as I try to kind of revamp, see can I get some more time here to spend with you all, which is that anybody who makes a donation of $60 or more, and you put in the donation C60 Evo deal, then we will contact you and ask you for your address and send you a bottle of the C60 Evo capsules that were part of the BOGO special last March, meaning they did expire, okay, in March officially, but all that means is that they are still just as potent, okay, for entertainment purposes only, just as potent, and yet they can't sell them on the website anymore. But as a fundraiser for You Are Free TV, I want people to be able to experience them. $50 is less than a third of the price, and it gives a fundraiser. So it's basically $50 for the bottle and then shipping costs. So I appreciate that. There's ways to check that out below, all the information there that you need. So thanks so much for watching. I hope this video was helpful. And I believe that we really are having so much to look forward to. There's, you know, if they can end this Russia-Ukraine thing, and we can literally get this ball rolling faster and faster, you know, down the hill here, gathering across what is reaching across Crossfire Hurricane, Epstein, the steel, and the control here with Israel, MI6, the fight of the globalists, economy of sin versus America. This is what this fight is all about, and we're gaining ground. So keep your spirits up and keep your prayers up, and you know, just continually listening to the word of God inside you. You know, just keep staying in that center. That's what's important. What does your center tell you? Don't get all thrown around by the news, this, that, and the other thing. You know, stay in your center and stay connected to God, because that is what's going to direct you going forward as we deal with this massive global change. Okay, we're in a war, it's true, and we're fighting it versus laying down and dying, okay, which is what's happening with Biden. And there's, you know, it's still going to be ongoing, okay, it's not ending, but you can be ready for it by staying in your center and staying centered in God. And of course, putting on God's armor and, you know, just being a warrior for the Prince of Peace, Jesus Christ, because that's what we have. The golden rule of rules and rules us. So you are free, and I will see you tomorrow with a great interview, I hope. Looking forward to it.